Welcome to the Power of Purity podcast, the show that empowers men to experience their sexual gift in a healthier way. Now here's your host, Tony Ingracia.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Power of Purity podcast. Thank you for being here today. And as we begin today's episode, I just pray that you are in a place of strength and you're pursuing God and you're seeking God and you're chasing after God, and that you're continuing forward in your battle for purity as you seek to bring your sexual gift under the authority of Christ, as you seek to honor God and your wife with your sexual gift if you're married. And if you're not married, then you seek to honor God and honor your future wife with the expression of your sexual gift. So welcome back to the podcast, and if you've been with me the past couple weeks, you know that I have a new friend. His name is Les from Canada, and I've been talking with Les for the past couple episodes. He's been sharing his story and his struggle and his journey with us, and Les was in a place where he had been struggling for years and years, and had kind of acquiesced, right? Kind of given up in the battle like so many of us do because of the perpetual failure and the accessibility of internet porn. It just feels like I can't win. I can't overcome this. And I think Les got to that place. And then through a series of events, a friend shared with him about the Power of Purity podcast. He started listening. God started using the podcast in his heart and life to kind of show him some things and begin to stir his heart. And I'm so blessed, Les, to hear that you are getting back in the battle, that there's some hope being inspired for you. Dude, I can do this. I can fight for my purity. I don't have to acquiesce. Like, I'm going to get back in this battle. So welcome to the battle. I'm so proud of you, Les.
Yeah, thank you, Tony, and thank you for your ministry that I know is touching so many lives. Has been a big part of me getting back in the battle, really evaluating myself, has helped with some great conversations with my wife, helping us go deeper in our relationship, being honest, and really just helping me in my relationship with God.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Since you mentioned some deeper conversation with your wife, so it's cascaded into your relationship with Faith. And have you been a little more honest with her? You've kind of disclosed some things to her. You've been a little more transparent and vulnerable. And how has that gone?
Yeah, so we've been kind of going on these long walks through the woods and being kind of more intentional about deeper conversations. I think one thing I've realized, it's really easy to set up camp at the end of the night and watch a TV show, not really talk about your day and just kind of cohabit. But we decided we're going to work on a relationship, dig deeper and talk about things. And I've shared my battle. I've shared that this podcast has really made me realize that I have a real issue here, that if it keeps going, it's going to turn into a bigger issue. And we've had conversations about how struggling with pornography has affected her, has affected our sex life, and it broke my heart. But my wife is very beautiful. Like, she definitely gets the attention of people, and she's actually in the fitness business. So she has an Instagram where she shares, fitness videos and food recipes and stuff like that. And throughout this, I was kind of getting insecure. I'm like, oh no, my issue. She's going to be talking to someone because, I heard these stories that it makes them really insecure and want attention from somewhere else. So I got really insecure. And anyway, I noticed that guys were trying to talk to her. She wasn't giving in to these guys talking to her. These guys were trying to talk to her, get her attention, that kind of thing. And that again scared me. But what happened out of the conversation of, my wife doing her fitness and me going through this time where I'm realizing how important purity is that there's an untapped market on the internet for women who want to dress modestly and inspire other women. So part of what I want to do is inspire her to be comfortable in her own skin, not, and inspire women by wearing, very modest clothing, and helping other women realize that they don't need to seek attention from guys. She wasn't doing it intentionally, but I told her what kind of battle men have, and that often guys look on Instagram for fitness girls, and that even though you're not intending to look this way, they see it this way. And so we've been talking about that, and she was really inspired by that conversation, because she had really no idea, right? And so, no, the conversations have been really good with my wife, and I feel so connected with her that I'm able to share my battle, and that she's able to just resonate, understand, and offer help.
Thank God. I can pretty much guarantee, I mean, if I'm a betting man, I'd bet a nickel. I'll take the bet that as you progress on your healing journey, in your relationship with you, and your relationship with God, and your relationship with sex, there's a lot of work that you have to do, Les. But as you work on your issues, and you're getting healthier and healthier with you and you, and you and God, and you and sex, that will cascade into your marriage. And it will begin to profoundly affect your relationship with faith, right? It's like, how can you be healthier with her if you're not healthier with yourself? So as you work on you, it has profound implications for how you and Faith can be healthier and stronger together, and more honest, and communicate better, and trust grows, and prayer gets deeper, and it's just very significant what God will do in your marriage as you work on you and as you become a man of purity. And let me just say, I've never met Faith, I've never seen Faith, but I already know from just the way you're talking, dude, God blessed you with a wonderful woman.
Yeah, I 100% believe that. I was holding out for someone. I didn't think she existed, and then out of the blue, there she was. And she's been a huge blessing in my life, and the perfect life partner for me. And so I'm very thankful that God brought her into my life and that we're married.
That's great. Well, like I said at the end of the last episode, Les, you had shared with me that you had just maybe a few questions you put together that you wanted to ask me during this conversation. So should I invite you at this point? Do you have a couple questions for me? I'll do my best to offer some feedback.
Yeah. So we were kind of talking about the horizontal aspect of worship and accountability, and it's not just us and God, and we just talk to God, and we do it independent of other brothers who are struggling and stuff like that. And I wanted to, first of all, in line with getting into a group and discussing starting a group, how much victory, or how crucial is it to have that relationship with men? How crucial is it to intentionally meet on a regular basis? And what has that done for you in your walk for purity? And how long have you been doing that? I just want to know how important is that?
To be in a group with other guys.
And intentionally doing it like on a regular basis.
Right. Well, I'll say that I've been doing it so long, I mean, it's like a fixture in my life. The group that I've been a part of, I guess it's fair to say that I lead it or I facilitate it. I'm not there every single week, and we have a good group of guys. I'm so blessed because the constellation of men that are in this group right now is such a blessing. The way it works, our group is open, so guys can come in and go out at any time. And we have guys hear about the group, and they come in, and they might be there for 3 months, and then they disappear. A guy might come a month and disappear. Other guys come a year and then disappear. I have guys in the group that have been there for years. We typically have between 8 and 12 guys, although our group has escalated here recently. It's not unusual for us to have 16 or 18 guys. And if they all showed up, I don't know how many guys there would be. But the point being, the constellation of men that are in this society right now, it's totally awesome. They're all Christian men. They all love God. They want to serve God. They want their life to count for the kingdom. But for whatever reasons, like you, Les, and like I, these are brothers that have struggled with their sexual gift, right? We live in this profoundly sexualized world. There's temptation everywhere. There's internet porn. And so we have guys that have struggled with porn, struggled with masturbation. We have guys that have had affairs. We have guys that have struggled with prostitutes and strip clubs. We've had guys in the group that have struggled with same-sex attraction. And I started this group. I'd have to figure it out. I'd have to try to figure it out. I know that it was over 15 years ago. I'm thinking like 17 years ago, 17 or 18 years. So I've been doing it for a long, long time. Every Thursday night. It's just a fixture of my life. And I will say that I believe that my group has been a gigantic part of my success in God, my success in the kingdom, my success in my journey of sexual purity. And as we were sharing last week a little bit in last week's episode, I believe that purity is a team sport. It's not a solo sport. And it's so encouraging when you get into a group of brothers and you get to know each other pretty quick. You know, there's an unusual level of honesty and transparency and vulnerability. It's not unusual for a guy to cry in the group. A guy feels emotional. Guys share their failures. They share their struggles. We pray for each other. We encourage each other. The guys call each other throughout the week. So you're not doing it alone. You're on this journey with some other guys. And I just can't say enough about how important it is and how significant it is.
And so when you come together as a group, what's the, I guess there's two questions here. What's the content of your time together? Like, how do you break down the time? My second question would be, maybe this is a bigger one, like, how do you actually get guys to come? How do you, quote unquote, promote or market this? How do you share this and get guys to come? And then how do you get guys to be vulnerable in this time?
That's 3 questions.
Oh gosh, yeah. I have a lot of questions about how to start a group because it's obviously not as easy as getting a group of guys to go to the gym together. It's
right.
It's bigger, but tell me a little bit about like the content of your discussion, how you facilitate it, and what you do.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, let me mention that because of the COVID situation, we're actually meeting online right now. We're meeting on Skype, okay? And I don't know when we're going to go back to start meeting in person again. So we've always met in person at my office or someplace, mostly at my office, for an extended period of time until COVID. So when we meet, kind of the content is we try to keep the group as discussion-oriented as possible. We don't want it to be lecture-oriented. And I will say that that is a little bit of a challenge because I'm kind of a teacher and I've been doing this purity thing for a long time and I developed this material, podcasts, I've written books and do seminars and conferences. And so I just have, over the years, I've created an enormous amount of content. So I think the guys kind of come with the expectation that I'm going to lead, that I'm going to teach, and they're going to learn. And so when I'm there, more often than not, I'm the facilitator. I choose a particular topic, and I kind of do a teaching. And I'm introducing ideas to the guys and teaching and integrate story. I use video clips sometimes. I normally put together a PowerPoint. So whatever it is that particular topic is, but I try to make it discussion-oriented. I invite the guys at any time, raise your hand. Like if you have a question, an observation, an objection, a comment, please, let's share. And I'll ask questions, and we try to cultivate discussion and participation. I think that's very important. And then we always pray together. Sometimes, there's not just one template that we use all the time. Sometimes guys will share. Say, does anybody have anything to share? What's going on? Anybody struggling? Anybody mess up? And guys will volunteer and maybe share a little bit about their struggle or what's going on, something in their marriage, a conversation they had with their wife, something that they're struggling with, asking for feedback. Guys sometimes share verses or passages, what they're learning. So it's just kind of like a Christian fellowship. We just share and pray and read the Word and study and teach. So I don't think there's anything magical about the formula of the content. I think the main thing is just to get together with some guys and start talking and start sharing. The second thing that you asked, I think, was, how do you get guys to come?
Yeah.
And let me tell you that I'm not sure I figured that out. And if you figure it out, I want you to teach me. I will tell you that there is a natural inclination for men to resist this. It's very, very hard to get men to come out. And I don't know if you've heard my stories yet on the podcast, but, I was invited to do my purity conference at a church with 4,000 members, and only 17 men came to the conference. So men have a natural reluctance. There's a dynamic that I call guilt by association. And men are afraid, if I go to that meeting about sex or about purity, and people see me there, then they're going to think, why are you here? Do you have a problem with sex? Are you a pervert? Are you watching porn? So guilt by association. So men don't want anything to do with it. I've said before, it's like, imagine if there was a ministry and they came to your church and set up a booth in the back lobby of church, and then the pastor announced, we have a booth today in the lobby. If anybody here is struggling with masturbation, stop by the booth at the end of the service to get some. And nobody would go to that booth, right? Because if you see me going to the booth, I don't want anyone to see me. So men are afraid of this topic. And I think another dynamic that is huge is that men are afraid of their wives. Because if they go to a purity group or anything about sex, it will invite questions from their wife. Their wife might say to them, why do you need to go to that meeting? You don't need to go to that meeting. Why would you go? You don't need to go. And he's sitting there in his duplicity and in his secrets thinking, girl, you don't know. I've been looking at porn the past 11 years. So I do need to go to this meeting, but you don't know who you're really married to. You don't know what my struggle is. So if I go to the meeting, is it going to make my wife suspicious? And then I'm going to get in trouble. So instead of coming out of the bushes, they push deeper back into the bushes in their sense of duplicity and hiding. So to be honest with you, how do we get guys to come to the group? I think that most guys that come to the group, Les, I hate to say it, but it's true. Most guys that come to the group end up finding their way to the group because they got caught by their wife. They don't necessarily volunteer. They got caught. Their wife caught them looking at porn. Their wife found out they had an affair. The wife found out they've been having cyber sex or they used a prostitute. Whatever, they're busted. Now they're in big, big trouble. And their wife demands that they go to counseling or that they get in a group or that they do something. So a lot of guys come because they were forced into the light by being caught, not because they came into the light on a volunteer basis. Although some men do. Men hear about the group and they know they have an issue, so they want to come to the group. I think an important way to package this, if I could suggest something, is to try to convey to men, we're putting this group together, guys, and we live in a sexualized culture, and this is common to men. A lot of guys struggle with this. And I just want you to know that if you come to this group, it doesn't mean that you have a problem with sex. All that it means is that we live in a highly sexualized culture. There's a lot of temptation out there, right? And all of us as Christian men, we need help. We need strength. We need reinforcements. We need encouragement. We need exhortation. So we're getting together just to equip ourselves, to have the tools to fight this battle with some sense of success, So it doesn't mean that you have a problem. All it means is you're interested in being strengthened for the battle, and you're interested in being a better man.
Yeah, no, I love what you said there. And what comes to mind is almost like for any man who's not caught or forced into the light, it's almost like doing regular oil changes on your car or going to the mechanic.
There you go. Very, very good. I love that metaphor.
Yeah, well, if you let things go long enough, you're going to have a huge explosion, and then you need to get it fixed, and it's very expensive, or you need a new car, that kind of thing, right? But if you're consistent in checking on yourself and being vulnerable with other men, you can really prevent. And I think that's where I'm so interested in your story and also inspiring other men, is that, I looked at your story and I thought to myself, I am not okay with myself today if that's what's going to happen to me in 30 years or 20 years from now, right? At 26, I'm newly married, I love my wife, and I don't want this to happen. And I'm sure there's a lot of men out there, but they're not necessarily the ones listening to this podcast, right? You're definitely right in saying you're only looking for the cure when you know there's an issue, right? So I think we need to share this with men, and as I think about like a marketing spin, to get them through the door, just a man of God group. How do we become men of God? Well, our sexuality is a big part of that, right? And I was thinking about even how do you even ask? Who do you ask? And I think we all have like a friend circle within our church, and we can just share how this podcast has impacted us. And this group of men I work out with, I just kind of shared with them. And I remember, one guy's like, I don't really want to join a group. I'm like, well, here, listen to this podcast. Listen to our first few episodes. Listen to what this guy has to say. And it's interesting how that really intrigues the men to be more involved and understand and talk about these things more. So it's almost like your podcast is like a gateway drug into the real discussion, the real raw effort of men coming together and realizing, hey, we haven't been doing our regular oil changes, but there's definitely potential disaster that lies down the road if we don't keep up this regular maintenance.
It's so good, Les. You're saying some really, really good things. And I'll tell you what I think another key is, and I think that this was the third question you asked, something like, how do you get men to open up? How do you get them to talk about this? And I think a key point here is that somebody has to go first. And it's like, I've had an unfair advantage because I believe that there's actually a calling on my life from God to tell my story. God wants me to share my story with other men. And obviously, my story is out there now. I've spilled my guts. The good, the bad, the ugly. The most embarrassing, shameful, painful, horrible, terrible things about Tony and Gracia. The world knows my story. I've written a book. I do this podcast. I do a conference. So I'm accustomed to talking about my story. But here's what I've learned, Les. If I had a chance to go to a men's Bible study group, And this, in the early days, kind of how the ministry began. I went there and said, guys, I'm just going to share my story with you. And I would share my story, like the uncut version, the raw version, the unplugged version. And I just was honest. I didn't candy coat it. I didn't minimize it. I didn't try to make myself sound better than I am. I share my story with men, and I found that it's very disarming to men. As men sit there and hear my story, they think, basically they're sitting there, I think sometimes thinking, holy crap, I can't believe this guy is talking like this. I can't believe he's telling on himself. Holy cow, he did that? He did that? Oh my gosh, he did that? And as I'm telling men, it woos them. It calls them. It draws them toward the light. And they intuitively sense this guy is being honest. Like, holy cow, this guy gets it. Like, oh my gosh, I see myself in his story, but he's talking about it, and I've been too scared to talk about it to anybody. Like, so if there's anybody that I can talk to this guy. So what I found in the early days of the Power of Purity class is men were seeking me out. Men were calling me, Tony, can we have lunch? Can I buy you a cup of coffee? Like, dude, I need to share some things with you. I'm going to tell you something about myself I've never told anybody. And the reason they want to tell me is because I've told them my story first. So somebody has to go first, and that sets the tone or creates the DNA that's going to define what kind of meeting and what kind of group this is going to be. It's a group where we're honest, we're vulnerable, we're transparent, and there's confidentiality, and we're going to be safe with each other. And it's like truth calls truth, light calls light. So somebody has to go first. So I would very, very much encourage you, Les, that if you have a heart to start a group, you need to go first. If you can get 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 guys together, then say, guys, you don't need to say a single word. Well, let's say a ground rule of this group. Of course, nobody has to share anything that they're uncomfortable. You share as much or as little of your story that you want to share or your struggle. But I'm going to go first. Here's my story. And you tell the uncut version of Les from Canada and your struggle and what you've been going through. And as you share your story, it will invite the other guys to share. And then the guys start putting their toes in the water to feel it out. And let me just tell you, I think that men are longing for something like this. Most men tend to be loners. Most men tend to kind of be isolated and live with a kind of dishonesty. Men are not known. There's this part of their life that nobody knows. It's been a secret. So this is an opportunity to be honest, to come into the light, to be vulnerable. And I think that woos men and it calls them and it draws them. And a lot of guys will respond to that, especially guys that love God, because they intuitively sense, this is the way I should be living. I need my brothers. I need to be honest. I need fellowship. I need koinonia. So guys are drawn toward this.
Yeah. So, when you said confidentiality, I think that's going to be a key part to being in a group, that you say, hey guys, what we talk about here today, what happens here today stays between us, and we need to respect each other that way.
Absolutely. That is an absolute ground rule at the very epicenter of the group. Confidentiality.
It'll break some walls down. And I think also over time, people feel comfortable. You build that relationship.
You get to know each other and trust grows. I'm sharing with you on that level and you're sharing with me. It creates trust.
Exactly. And like you said, your story is out there. Anyone who looks at you is thinking, well, I want to talk to this guy. I mean, that's why I emailed you. I wanted to talk to you. You shared your story. You poured yourself out. And, guys don't want to be known for the bad they have done. And what shocked me about your podcast was you have people on and they are almost comfortably talking about what has happened, which was so terrible, but they have hope. They have healing.
Which is exactly what you did, Les. You've been sharing your story with us the past couple of weeks, so thank you for that. And it's a gift, let me tell you. It's sacred to me. I don't take this lightly.
Yeah.
It's like we're talking about people's deepest pain and hurt and trauma and difficulty and struggle and sin and embarrassment and shame. And for people to go there, to invite me into their story, it is a treasure. It's a gift. It's sacred. Yeah. I don't take it lightly. It's a very beautiful, holy, awesome thing to be invited into story.
And it's not easy to open up like this. And Tony, we talked a couple times before the podcast, and we were talking about starting a group, and we wanted to share with other men, how do we start this and talk like that. Well, as soon as I got back in the battle, as soon as I started being vulnerable, telling my wife, even here today, the devil is not happy. And it's lie after lie that keeps coming in, that, you're of no value, you're messed up, you're not going to help anyone. Like, there's so many lies that come into our mind about this. And I know that is a huge barrier in starting a group for any man who wants to take the initiative. I know for me, even, like, I had this idea a few weeks ago, and I'm like, how do I word this with the guys? What if no one shows up? And, there's all these lies, and it really just comes down to trusting that God's going to use it, because there's a lot of fear with it to open up, that someone hears, because you're being vulnerable. They could share that with anyone. And, as I'm dealing with this stuff with my wife, it's not easy. There's so many, there's a lot of fear and lies that come in, and we're not doing this to use the analogy of working out, to gain bigger muscles and to be outwardly healthy. We're doing it inwardly, and letting out that stuff that's inside of us is hard. And as soon as we get back in the battle, the devil's not happy, and he wants to shut it down. And that's what I've experienced. I mean, Tony, that I called you the other day, and I was just feeling completely distraught. I messed up. How can I be on this show right now? How can I be encouraging that? Well, who's going to listen to me if I just messed up? They want to hear about victory. You guys want to hear about victory. You don't want to hear about a man who's messed up.
And what did I say to you?
You said that you think that more men will relate to me in my battle where I am now. There's a lot of men who are not on the winning side necessarily, and that encouraged me. And I think I really struggle with the process of sanctification and the patience, right? Because it's painful. It's painful for me and for others.
So my heart, Les, and I'll just say to the listeners, I don't necessarily want to only showcase people on the podcast that have made it to the other side and they're a success. And now you've been walking in purity for 3 years. So now you have a story and you're qualified to be a guest on the podcast because you have something to say. I appreciate, Les, that you would be willing to come on the podcast and share the struggle and the journey and how difficult it is and what you're going through and what you're learning, even though you're just starting this journey. You just recently, the past month, are getting back in the battle. And I think there's more guys that are going to relate to you right there than can relate to the guy that's had 3 years of success. So, dude, I'll learn from you. You learn from me. You pray for me. I'll pray for you. We encourage each other. We learn from each other. I think this thought is significant. You don't have to be a man of purity for the next 10 years, Les. You don't have to be a man of purity for the next year or even the next month. Just be a man of purity today. One day, that's it. And dude, you can do it. I don't even know you that well. I'm just getting to know you. But you're a good man with a good heart, and you have Christ, and you love God, and you're in the battle, and you can make quality decisions today, like that version of Les that when he was tempted, he ran outside to get the heck away from his computer. Well, dude, do whatever you have to do, and just make it today. Be a man of purity today. You can do that. That's doable. And then start over tomorrow and do it again. And then start over the next day and do it again and do it again. And if you keep doing that, pretty soon you'll have 20 years of purity. Hey guys, I hate to do it, but the clock is telling me something. And it's saying, hey Tony, you're over time for today's episode. So I'm going to invite you guys to come back next week for our fourth and final installment of our interview with Les from Canada. And isn't this interview awesome, you guys? I just love Les. I think he's a good man with a good heart, and I think he has an amazing story. And I pray to God that it's been encouraging to you and helpful to you and insightful to you. And I pray that you're being challenged to press into God and to press into your walk of purity like you never have before. So God bless you guys, and I'll see you right back here next week for our next episode of the Power of Purity podcast. God bless you.
Thanks for listening. Visit powerofpurity.org for more resources and information. And if this podcast has been helpful or encouraging, please invite a friend to listen. Until next time, remember, there's power in purity.